Welcome, everybody, to Dad Talk Live. I'm your host, Viz, and it is my honor and pleasure tonight to welcome our very special guest, Russell Todd, who most of us know from Friday the 13th, Part 2, as the character of Scott, who, did you know that you were Jason's first machete kill?
Actually, I never did realize that.
Yeah,
That's funny. Now that
yeah.
you say that, yes, that's very true. Yeah.
You became Jason Voorhees' first machete kill, which we all know became his signature weapon all the way up into space. And we'll get to we'll address that later on. Now let's go back to the beginning. You starred in a movie called He Knows You're Alone in 1980, which also had Tom Hanks in that. And that is where you sort of met Steve Miner. So Steve Miner directed Friday the 13th Part 2. So can you
Correct.
walk us through that whole process that ended up landing you the role of Scott in Friday the 13th Part 2?
Sure. Well, as you said, exactly, I was doing this movie called He Knows You're Alone. And I'm only in the opening scene of it, and Tom Hanks is in the movie, and he's one of the stars of it. But it's just coincidentally, I get killed the exact same way. I'm hanging upside down, and he knows you're alone, and my throat gets slit.
Oh,
Which
God.
is, so you don't see the actual slitting of the throat, but when this girl comes out of the car, we've been making out in the car. When she comes out and she looks above the car, she sees me hanging there upside down in the blood. And so it's very funny. But Steve Miner had nothing to do, as you know, with that film. I'm not even sure if he saw it. It just coincidentally, the killings are the same. I was reading, the publication Backstage.
Yes.
It's a newspaper with auditions and
Hmm.
information for actors. And I was going through that, and I saw the audition for Friday the 13th, Part 2. And I had an agent at the time, but I think I just went on it myself. And I just called him up and I submitted a photo, and I was brought in because I had seen the first, like you had, and I thought it was a terrific, terrific horror film. And I thought it'd be very cool to be part of the sequel. And I got called in. I don't really remember much about the audition. I remember reading for the casting director and Steve, and them nodding their heads like, "Yeah, look, sounds good. You seem to fit the part well." And I went home, but like every actor, you do those things, and you usually think, "Nah, not going to happen." And if it went well, that's really when it never happens. It's the ones you don't think you're going to get that somehow turn out. But I got the call, a few days later. And soon after that, we were all on a bus heading up to Kent, Connecticut, where we shot it at a camp up there on a lake. And it
That,
was
that's
amazing.
that's a great story. Now, let's talk about the timelines here for a second. The original came out in 1980, and it was a huge success.
Yes.
The sequel, which came out 1981, was very quick to come out, only a year after the original. Was that normal for back in those days for sequels to come out that soon after the original? Nowadays, it may take several years to get a sequel out and done. But
Yeah,
was
that's
that
very true.
normal back then?
Yeah, I don't know if it was normal back then, but in this case, it was kind of odd. I mean, they knew they had a hit, and they wanted to cash in on it as soon as possible. So Paramount gave it the green light. And quite often with the sequel, the script is what takes the time. They don't approve that script, so it could take a while because they figure, we're just rushing. We want to be sure it's good. But they wrote the script, which is pretty good, and they Paramount approved it right away. So they funded it, they greenlit it, and off it went. But I think you're very accurate. Most sequels, as we know, take a long time till we see them hit the screen.
Exactly. And I don't know if it's just a lot more politics involved today, but who knows? Now, you having watched the original, did you get that script for the second one and you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be good to bring in the son? That was the motivation for the killings in the first movie. What were your initial thoughts of the script when you actually read it?
Well, first again, I was very excited because the first one was such a big hit, and it was a Paramount movie, and I thought this would be great to be work on this and be attached to it. And I liked the script a lot. I wish my character would have lived a little longer, like maybe to the end, but and been the hero. But I just thought, he had some great scenes. I liked the character and the way he was written. Um, I didn't know Steve Miner. I didn't know any of the other actors. So it was just, totally new to me to be with this group of people. But after reading it, I was just really, excited about being part of it.
Uh, did you like the way they took it with bringing back the son that the mother thought was dead and him avenging his mother and that being his motivation for killing all the counselors, as it was the case back in a lot of the movies back in the 80s slasher flicks and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked. People seem to respond to it. I still get it's incredible. I mean, the Friday the 13th fans and horror fans in general, but what I know as Friday the 13th fans are just amazing. Their connection to this franchise, and then so I still get, and I'm bringing that up because they still write me, and sometimes I still get noticed from that. But many of them say it was their favorite one out of the franchise, which is great.
Yeah.
So I guess the script did work, and the choices were well made.
Now, you got awesome death in the movie, okay? You get caught in that trap, you're hanging, the girl goes out to find help. The next thing you know, a hand grabs you by the hair, pulls your head back, and before you know it, your throat is slit with the machete, okay?
Yeah.
What was the was that physically exhausting, taxing? Were you hanging upside down? Walk us through the filming of that scene.
Okay, so first I had to be cast. My throat was cast with foam latex. I took a mold, and then it was cast by actually a friend I grew up with. His name is John Caglione Jr., who became a very famous Academy Award-winning makeup artist.
Wow.
And he did that casting. And then that day, and it was actually the last day of my shooting, and that's another story, but I don't know if I can. I'll just tell you real quickly that it was the last day of shooting. I remember calling my parents in Albany, New York, and saying, it's my last day. It's my death scene. And they said, Russell, wait a minute. Why did they wait to your last day to kill you? Is this a snuff movie? Are you sure you're okay? I said, Mom, Dad, it's Paramount. It's a sequel to, this big movie. I'm sure it's okay. Just be careful. Be careful. But so they cast me, and about 4 hours before the actual shot, I was put into the makeup, and they blended it. And I had a tube running from just beneath the slit, and it was pre-cut. And you can't see that because I keep my head down. And it was running down my side and down my pant and out by my ankle. And that was the tubing. And I would then go to the set, and they put me on a ladder so I could get up to where the rope was. And they connected my feet. And then they had some guys hold me so I would come down and be hanging upside down. And then there was a guy up in the tree who connected the tubing to a pump, that held blood in it. And they were holding my back up so I wasn't totally, vertical. So, the blood wasn't rushing to my head. So it wasn't really difficult as far as the positioning. But, you are upside down I think the whole thing took maybe 30, 40 minutes to do it. But we wanted to get it in one take because of, the blood running. We had to change of clothing in case there was a problem with the camera or with me. But it was a little nerve-wracking knowing that they wanted it in one take. And I thought, well, you just try to do what you feel is natural for the reaction, although none of us really know what that's like, thank God. But you have to pretend. And then the camera started, and as you probably know, one of the famous fan comments about this whole scene is that the machete is backwards.
Yeah.
Goes across my throat. And I don't know why. I mean, maybe for protection, or maybe it was just a mistake. It wasn't a sharp machete, but perhaps it was a mistake. And when I was told as soon as the blade hit me, just to lean back, and that would open it up, and the blood would start pumping. And when it started pumping, it just started coming. And the sensors cut it very quickly.
Yeah.
But in reality, and I've seen the other footage, I mean, the blood just keeps coming and coming, and it started getting into my eyes. And that's when they actually, yelled cut.
Well, thank God you got it in one take. But the fact that they used a real machete.
I believe it was, with a dull side to it. Maybe
Yeah.
it was just, you know, maybe it was a prop. It looked real to me, and I'm the one that's dealing
Now,
with it.
the person's whose hand was that, I'm assuming they used some kind of a stunt professional.
Yes, they did.
It was not the actual person
It
who
wasn't the guy who
portrayed
played Jason.
Jason. Okay.
No, no, there was no
Okay.
reason to.
But
Um, but again, it was pretty safe because it was upside down,
yeah,
reversed. So there was nothing sharp my throat at any time.
it
But there was
really,
still a lot of tension because you're playing a death scene. You're in the mode that, well, first of all, you don't know what's happening, and someone grabs your neck, your hair, and pulls it back, and then a blade comes in. And I remember my eyes kind of like look down as I watch as the blade comes down to my throat. So a lot of hyperness is going on with everybody on the set because we're, like I said, trying to get it in one take.
I just love, and I assume you did get it on one take.
We did,
Great,
yeah,
great. I love hearing stories about how special effects like that were done back in the days before CGI.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was such a, it still is. There's still quite a few people out there that know the craft. They know it well. It's sort of becoming a dying breed. But just the ingenuity that goes into, like you said, the pump and having somebody above the tree to pump the blood down.
Right.
Uh, what do you feel in comparison to you actually shooting scenes like that to today's CGI?
Well, I guess, your process is still the same because you're still imagining you're in that situation as an actor and pretending and trying to, pull on things that you can for horror effect, for your own horror and shock. But it, there's a lot that goes into the new work with CGI. Still, the actor
Oh
is so
yeah.
much about here's where you look here, you look there, and you have to imagine so much. It's a very different process. Here, you actually feel it because it's happening. So that's where it's different for the actor's work, I guess. But old fashioned is kind of cool,
It is cool. It is
It
cool. And
really is.
I read an article on Friday to our viewers, basically that the fans are really kind of split. Some of them prefer the CGI, but there's just as many that really love the old school, special effect makeups.
Yeah,
People like Tom Savini and
right.
whatnot who were masters of their craft. You
Dick Smith was it who really started
Yeah, yeah. And then
The
you got like
Exorcist?
Rick Baker as well. I mean, real masters of their craft. Now, you have appeared in quite a few horror films. Were you a fan of the genre, or was it just the parts that you were getting?
The latter. I mean, I did. I really had no connection, although I've always enjoyed horror movies. Yes. I mean, since I was a kid, I loved being scared in a dark movie theater. But the latter, it was just coincidence that I started getting, one and the other and the other.
Did you
And
did you end up finding yourself, finding a new appreciation for horror after appearing in several of them?
Well, I don't know if it was a new appreciation. As I said, I always enjoyed it, but it was fascinating and also very fulfilling to go through the process and now not only watching on the screen but being part of it
Yeah.
and being shocked and horrified and scared and running from killers and robots in one and various things. It's one thing watching it on the screen; it was a very different thing, living it, and so
Yeah, yeah. Now,
it was wonderful to have it firsthand.
when did you actually see the final product of Friday the 13th Part 2? Was it at the premiere? Do you remember?
It was at the premiere. Yeah.
What did you think of the final product after everything was put together, edited, and you're like, whoa, this was pretty good?
I liked it. And pretty much everything that I shot was in there, which I was happy about that. I mean, as actors, a lot of time, we're things we've done are cut out and on the editing room floor, and it's very frustrating. I remember doing a TV movie with, I forget her name, one of the stars of Dallas, and I played her lover in a bar scene, and the whole scene was cut out when the movie came out because she never went to the bar. Yeah, they decided. And I was like, oh no. And that one's happening in a national Coke commercial during the Oscars. I had shot it with the
Boy.
final shot, drinking the soda over the beach, and it was the last shot of the commercial. Never used it. They couldn't get the right coloring or the sunset proper. And I thought it was going to be on. I'm watching the Oscars and watching that Coke commercial, and I wasn't on it. Those things are frustrating. But seeing yourself in the film, in this one, they kept everything in, and I was happy about that. And I think it's very good. It does scare. It keeps people interested.
Oh, yeah.
I think the characters are well defined and very different from each other. And there's humor, which is wonderful. It's just that the guy always dies,
Yeah. It's always the last girl standing. Now, what was it like? You said you were in Connecticut shooting. You said you didn't know any of your fellow castmates. How did you guys get along? Did you guys adhere pretty quickly? Get to know one another, have some fun on the set in between takes? What were the shooting conditions like?
It was great. I mean, we're in an actual camp in Kent, Connecticut, which is a beautiful area, and on the lake, just like you see in the movie. And we're all brought together for the first time, and everyone was pretty young, and we'd all done other things, smaller things, but there really wasn't anyone that had like major, I don't think major, I want to say, well, not success, but notoriety, perhaps.
Yeah.
So that was a common bond with all of us, and no one had any attitude, which was so refreshing for a set, and some of them were very funny. Stu Charno, very funny guy, and he made us laugh all the time, as did some of the others, Amy and John and Tom and Bill and Marta, Lauren. I mean, all of them, we laughed a lot. We all were thrilled that we were doing this sequel and felt kind of blessed to be there, together to share this experience.
Now, by the time you guys started shooting Friday the 13th Part 2, the first one, like I said, it happened very quickly. Mm-hmm. It has become more popular as the years went on. It's just one of those films that has etched itself in horror film history and will always be there. The original and the second and the third and the fourth. How big, at the time that you guys were shooting the second, did you know that the first one, how successful it was? Or was its success still ramping up when you were shooting the second?
It was. I mean, we knew it was successful, hence the making of ours. They wouldn't have done it. And we knew, the numbers were good for it, and there was buzz about the first one still. But yes, it was still steamrolling. You're right. Mm-hmm. And people were still excited about that. And then when it was released that a second one, ours, was in production, we would see things, you would hear things in the news or from other people, or the fans were getting excited about it. So it was terrific. But we knew we were attached to something Special, yeah. I mean, who would know at that point what the franchise would become? I mean, it's incredible. It's amazing, and it's a thrill to be part of it.
Now, going on into like the third movie, which was really good as well. Did you, as a fan, enjoy watching where we got the introduction from that burlap sack that he was wearing in your movie, to the introduction to the infamous hockey mask that we get in the third one? Did you like the third one?
Okay, here's where I'm going to embarrass myself.
You didn't see it. You didn't see it.
I have not seen. I saw parts of 4 only because they lifted my death scene and used it in 4, which I didn't even know until someone said, one of the other cast members who also got his death lifted and put into 4 said, "Are you getting residuals for that?" I said, "What are you talking about? Actors, we want those residuals."
Yeah.
And he said, "You're in part 4. I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "Yes." So I looked at it and I realized I was. So I called the Screen Actors Guild and I said, "How come I'm not getting residuals?" Well, I don't know. We'll that's very odd, but I'm not sure. We'll look into it. And I kept calling them. They did nothing to make it happen. So I called Paramount and I said, "By the way, I'm in part 4. And they said, "Prove it." "Prove it? That's my face. You know my name, that's my face. In part 4, you lifted my death scene from part 2. And they said, you have to send us the time codes. I
Oh,
had to go out, get a copy of it, watch the time codes, take them and send that to them. And then they admitted I was in it. And then they sent that over to the Screen Actors Guild. And then I started getting residuals for part four.
sounds
It was
it so-
bizarre.
sounds nice. Yeah, well, it sounds like pretty much Hollywood. What
But I'm
was
still very grateful to Paramount. They did something wonderful for me.
No,
Yes.
yeah, Paramount is just it's an awesome studio, one of the oldest out there. What was it like working with Steve behind the camera? How was his directing style? Was it very just let sit back, let the actors do their thing, or was he very involved in the movements and everything else that comes with directing?
He's really terrific with actors. He's very relaxed, never lost his temper. He allowed us to make our choices, and like all directors, he might modify them, change them, tweak them a little, which is great, and you
Hmm.
appreciate that as an actor. So you do one scene this way, and you get your note, and you do it another. But he knows what he's doing, and he knows, when you're giving your best performance. He knows what the best angle is to shoot it from. He's technical, which is great. So he's not just one of those guys that, move the light. I mean, where the DP is doing everything, which
Yeah.
that is their job, of course, but he knows things technically as well. But he made it fun. We would laugh, and there were times we were silly in our takes, because we just had to let some goofiness out, and he would laugh along with us. But I don't remember anything negative with Steve.
Just a good
It was
overall experience.
it really was. He's a generous guy. Show me what you got, and if it needs some fine tuning, I'll do it, and it worked great.
That's awesome. Now, Scott, the character that you played in Friday the 13th Part 2, was a, mischievous kind of, not a bad guy, had a thing with the ladies and all that. What are
Yep.
the similarities, if you go back to the way you were back then? Of course, now, people tell me, if someone gave you the opportunity to go back and be 20 years old, I always say I will only do it if I take my 46 years of wisdom with me. Now,
That's a good point.
were there any similarities between Russell Todd and the character of Scott that you put into the character?
Well, I think I'm a little devilish, and so was Scott. I think I tried to bring that up a little more, and kind of, he's devilish. He's a little smarmy at times. I don't know. I'm not smarmy, but that part was the fun part to do. But a little trickster. I mean, I like teasing, and I think that was obviously what Scott did. So we're similar in that regard. I guess also he was kind of like fun and enjoy, and it was playful,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably me as well. But some people have said, well, he was a bit of a cad,
Yeah.
and all, and I said, was that negative, or was that a good thing with him? I thought that that was kind of appealing, because you kind of like disliked him but liked him as well.
No, he was a very interesting character. I mean, a
Yeah.
very interesting character. Now, you have done soap operas as well.
Yes.
You were in Another World. Were
For
there any
3 years.
other soap operas you did?
Well, Another World, I played a main character for 3 years, Dr. Jamie Frame, but Young and the Restless, which is here in LA,
Yeah.
one of the main actors, Don Diamont, ended up with meningitis in real life, so they called me in to replace him, and I didn't know how long it was going to be. Thank God he survived,
Yeah.
and came back. I think I was there about 6 weeks. So it was one of the main characters, but instantly thrust into this, replacing him, and he was like idolized by his fans. So it was funny. Well, not at the time it wasn't, but now it is. I would go to CBS Studios, not far from here, and I would go into the stage door, and there were a lot of fans there when you come in and go out. And at first, they didn't know who I was or what I was doing, but once my episode started playing, I would go and come out, and they go, "We want Don back. We don't like you. We want Don." And it was like, okay, I'm just playing the part. It's
I'm
not my
just
fault.
keeping the seat
I'm just
warm.
filling in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clicking the time card and getting out.
What is the biggest difference? Because soap operas are daily. They're new episodes
Yeah.
every day. I can't imagine what it's like to be on a set of a soap opera. It must be go, 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 one take, no more than two takes, let's get it done. I mean, how would you
Yeah, it
describe
really
it?
is. It's move, move, move. We have, so many pages to do in one day. It's a wonderful experience and training ground for an actor because you're literally there 50 weeks a year. You get 2 weeks off pretty much, and you have to book them months and months and months in advance. You tell them when you want off so they could write it into the story.
Wow.
And uh, when I was doing Another World, I was living in New York City. We were shooting in Brooklyn. So up at 5 a.m., get ready. Because we were in New York and shooting in Brooklyn, they provided a car service, which was wonderful to be sure we got there and we didn't rely on our own cars or public transportation. So the car would pick you up, you'd get there, you'd go into rehearsal like at 6:30, 7 o'clock perhaps. And depending on if you were first up or how many scenes you had that day, would depend how long your rehearsal process is. Then go to the makeup and then do blocking on the stage and then shoot your shots. But your first scene could be 9 in the morning and they may not need you again till 2 o'clock.
Wow.
Or they may need you just in the morning. So it varied, but the days were extraordinarily long most of the time because I was Dr. Jamie Frame. I was in the main family. And, sometimes it was 5 days a week. And if it was an event such as a holiday show we were shooting, which is always months and months in advance, we might be there to 2 a.m.
Wow.
to finish that one shot, one show. And we had to be back at 7. So a lot of times we would just sleep over in our dressing rooms.
Whew.
So we wouldn't have to go home and get back so quickly. But it's a factory. You're just, every day, all of these lines. And on Another World, unlike many other shows, we had to memorize every single line. There were no cue cards.
No cue cards.
Yeah, so it was important that you really did that. And at first it was very difficult to do, but it's training your mind. And after the first 6 months, it's amazing how quickly your mind adapts and is like a sponge and just takes in those words. And I would look at the page and they started writing for you. They knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just suddenly soak in, and it was so much easier to memorize and retain the lines. We'd still screw up and flub on the set and have some fun, but
now
it's
in
a tough process.
sorry, but in the soap opera world, is it really you guys have to start and finish an episode every day, or how many days are allotted to shoot one episode?
It is one day, one
Wow.
day for an episode, but you may do pickups for 2 or 3 other episodes that need it from previous, or you may do some shots that are going to be thrown into a later episode. And that could be due to actor availability or sets or whatever for many reasons, or just writing or changes that they want to do. But basically you're doing an episode a day.
It sounds like you said earlier, it sounds like the perfect training ground for an actor to get some wonderful experience.
It is. I see one downside. At least there was only one, and at least it was for me. I loved playing different characters. I was a cowboy, I was a camp counselor, I was an oceanographer. I was so many things with different actors, different shows, film, TV. And then you're the same person for 3 years or longer. And it's nice because you get comfortable with the character. But I always loved jumping around. And for me, it wasn't as interesting as playing all these other characters. And for that reason, after 3 years, I had let them know that I probably wouldn't be continuing after 3 years. And I was the last Jamie Frame that actually just wrote him off. I ended up going to Paris for a doctor's conference and never came back.
And that is really not uncommon. A lot of the actors that I have spoken to, they when I give them this hypothetical choice, they want the freedom to go out and explore and do different characters.
Yeah.
Rather, the way I phrase it to them is, would you want the job security on a show, let's say that it's going to go 5 or 8 seasons? And to my surprise is no.
Yeah.
They want to go out and explore their craft doing different things. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot to be said for a steady income for 5, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever. I mean, most people would jump at that opportunity, and it's wonderful. But there's something else. I think when you're an actor, and most actors are creative, that you want to use that creativity and explore different things. And there's nothing like getting a script and knowing you're a whole new character, and being able to delve into that and explore it and express it and perform it. But again, most actors would kill for a chance to be on a soap opera for a while. My mom used to say all the time, "Don't leave, don't leave." How many actors in the country are on a soap opera and you want to leave?
So, like you said, you've played all these different characters: camp counselor, oceanographer. How do you, when you get a role and you book it, how do you start preparing for whatever that character is? Do you go out and research it? What's your process?
Well, first off, one or two reads of this entire script right away, just to get the whole picture in. And then I look at the character, and sometimes I will ask the production for background about that person. I did an episode. Remember the show Riptide?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget the characters' names, but my dad on that show. That's where I played the oceanographer. My dad was Cesar Romero. Now, how cool is that?
Wow.
Yeah, and that's another reason I enjoy doing, when I was acting, playing these other characters. You get to meet these amazing icons. So here I am with Cesar Romero. We play oceanographers involved in this murder going on. And
wait, Cesar Romero, that was the Joker in the 1960s Batman, right?
Sure was.
Okay, oh man, you're right. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on.
Very suave, debonair.
Oh yeah.
Just on a side note, we would sit in our chairs waiting to go on, and I would say, "Cesar, tell me stories," and he would say, "What do you want to talk about?" And I said, "Well, anything you have to say was probably amazing to me. It's like stuff I would read in textbooks, history books about the industry." And he would tell me about playing tennis at Pick Fair with Mary Pickford and Charlie Chaplin. I mean, come on. What's better than that? And how they were, distinguished gentlemen back then in their white tuxedos and playing tennis in white, and how my generation is all about torn jeans, and the class is gone. So that was fascinating. But when I played that oceanographer, I researched a little about oceanography, the profession of it, and we had to speak in Italian the entire episode, but they gave it to us phonetically so we could learn it. So I worked a lot on that as well.
That sounds really challenging.
Yeah, it was. But hey, you're with Cesar Romero. I'm doing it. And then I did another one. Who was the rifleman? Chuck Connors.
Wow.
I played a champion skier with a film with Chuck Connors, and another icon, and I think this is so cool. So, and I was I actually had won medals in giant slalom in Europe as a skier, and I was an excellent skier most of my young life. And so then again, I knew, I didn't have to do much research for that, because I knew about the skiing and all. But playing a doctor like Dr. Jamie Frame, we had an actual doctor on set that would help us and explain many things. But, I would look into, if I knew in a script coming up there were medical, because I was the head of surgery for the hospital, I would have to perform surgery. I would look up certain things, and so I knew what I was talking about, instead of just saying it. Yeah. So I think you take it, you look at the character. You think what motivates him, what turns him on, what turns him off, his relationships with other people, why he says what he says, why he does what he does. There's so many things you can look at with a character. And then you make your choices. And then the director says, "Where the hell did that come from?" And sometimes they say that, and they say, "Yeah, use that." And sometimes they say, no, let's go a different way with that. And that's the terrific part of it. I mean, that process.
It's a whole creative process.
It is creative, exactly. You try what you think works from what you've put together, and they adjust you accordingly. And the give and take is fantastic.
So tell us about the Russell Todd Agency.
Never heard of it. So when I came off Another World, like I said, it was, soap opera is a great job and the fans are great, but it's a factory, and I wanted to do something else. I thought for the rest of my years, I'm going to find something else. So I came back from New York to LA, and I went on an audition for a commercial. And my good friend Kirk was running the camera there, and I did my audition. And he said, "Well, I'm working at this agency now that represents below the line talent, directors, DPs, production designers, costumers, editors, and they're looking for someone to assist the TV department." And I thought, "Oh wow, I just came off a soap opera. That might be tough. I don't know." But I said, "Let me meet them." And I went into their offices in Pacific Palisades, and there was this dynamic woman who had just bought the company, and I really liked her. And so they interviewed me, and the head of the TV department, this woman who I would be working for, was there too, but she really didn't want anyone there. She wanted to do her own thing. And so I was kind of like being pushed on her, maybe, to lighten her load, but she didn't want that. But they liked me. I got the job. And I'm there maybe 2 weeks, and I was answering phones at the front desk, and the guy walked in, and he said, "I'm a Steadicam operator. Do you guys represent Steadicam operators?" And I'm thinking, I don't think they do, but let me get back to you. So I researched, and I found that no one represented Steadicam operators. So I said, "You know what? I'm going to start the first division at an agency of Steadicam operators." So the company was called Smith Gosnell Nicholson, who really started below the line representation. And I started calling around to Steadicam operators. I found 10 that wanted to be repped, put it together, and I started getting them work. And while I was still assisting, the head of the TV department, whatever she needed, and suddenly it started growing, and they were getting a lot of work. And I brought it on another 5, and they were getting work. And soon this division was becoming a lucrative division to the agency. So, they're very happy. And then the head of the TV department left, excuse me, and they wanted me to now head the TV department as well as run the Steadicam department that I created. So I said, "I don't know how to do it all," but I said, "Let me try it." And I did. So I had all these incredibly well-known directors of photography. That was really exciting to me, to be representing them for TV, because I loved their TV and film work. But while I was doing that, I was building the Steadicam division as well, because kind of that's where my heart was. It was my baby. And I got up to about 15 people, and I stayed there about a year and a half. And I decided, if I can do it here, I can do it at home with myself. So I gave them notice. And I brought all the clients who wanted to come with me, just the Steadicam guys and girls. And I started a division out of my house at the beginning. And it grew to about 50 clients. And 21 years later, it's been quite amazing. It's something I love, what I do. I've always loved it.
I love that you started offering representation to people behind the camera that needed representation.
Yeah.
What is it still Steadicam people? Who is your, like you would call now after 20 years, your biggest client base? What do they do?
All Steadicam.
All Steadicam. So you stuck to that original.
Yeah, because it's a terrific niche. No one else is done. Now there's a woman that has 5 or 6, and some other people have tried to do it, but I believe unsuccessfully. But my agency is known when someone needs a Steadicam operator at any studio, any network, any music video, documentary, commercial. They usually, hopefully, call my company. And if not, they're probably calling one of my clients, who then calls me and says, "Get in touch with so-and-so." And I have people contacting me all the time that want me to rep them. But, I can't, I'd have to have some sort of,
limit.
Yes, limit. So,
like a boutique agency is generally considered under 100. Do you have under 100 clients?
Yeah, I'm still just about 50, and I've always kept it right there, which is manageable.
Yes.
And it's just enough people where, and I would say at any given point, 90% of them are working which is fantastic.
Yes.
But calls come in, and that person's not working. If that person's working, that they're asking for, so I have the ability to farm that out to all the others that are available. So it's a great kind of one-stop shopping for people.
Explain to our viewers who don't know what a Steadicam operator is.
a Steadicam is an apparatus that they wear. It's almost like they have a vest, like this hydraulic arm, and the camera is going out here, and the arm, has this ability to go up and down, and down below the post, there's an arm with a post, and at the bottom of the post is their monitor, so they can see what they're actually shooting, and quite often they're being like let's say two people are walking towards you. He's walking backward. They're in front of him, and there's someone pulling him, and there's someone else adjusting focus remotely, so he doesn't have to worry about the focus. But it's used, and the reason it's called Steadicam because that guy can run, he can walk, he can move, at strange angles. Yeah. You see no motion if it's done well. So and there's some, most of them are very, very, very good at it. You would not know it, and it's an incredible skill and talent. And many of them begin as regular operators. But it's
it sounds like a position that throughout the years there's still a big need for it, and it's not going away anytime soon because of technology.
Thank you. Yeah. I hope not. Not yet. But other things have come in, like the Movi, which is this little compact thing that you hold, and now drones come in that can do can be down here at eye line, take a shot, and even turn and then fly up as you ride off on a horse or whatever. So there are other toys in their bag of tricks that they can use, but Steadicam is still, it's used in, I won't say every, but almost every TV show. We have so many TV series. And features nonstop. And a lot of times the signature move that people can recognize as Steadicam is when you see two people talking and the camera's going around them. Mm-hmm. That is a Steadicam shot, most likely. But it's used in everything, thank God. And a great bunch of guys and girls that do it. A lot of fun to work with them, and they're very jazzed about what they do.
I bet. It sounds like a lot of fun. How did you feel about the transition from acting to becoming a representative?
I loved it. I don't think I would have wanted to become an agent for actors, and one of the things I didn't
talk about.
But I wasn't expecting to do this either. Like I explained, I kind of fell into it, because I just thought I would, learn to be an agent at this company and rep, this below the line talent. But going back to the soap opera, as I said, it's a factory. It didn't kill my love of acting, and it shouldn't, because it's a great gig, but it changed how I felt about acting. And because it was the factory, it took some of my joy away of performing. Not that I wouldn't do it again if I was asked to act again. But I wanted to find something else that would carry me through the rest of my life, and that I would also enjoy. And I had no idea how much I truly would enjoy it until I was, well into it. And it kind of really inspired me and excited me. I love when, even to today, I love when I have two phone lines in my office where they're both ringing, and my cell phone is being texted by a client or production, and I'm getting emails, and it's all, and what do I do next? And instead of getting crazed, it's like, yeah, this is great.
This is cool. This is exciting. Going back to the movie for a little bit, you were also, I would call Chopping Mall. It has gained almost a cult following.
It does. Definitely. It's a cult following.
It really has. How did you get involved with Chopping Mall?
That one, I believe that Jim Wynorski, the director, saw me in, I think it was Friday the 13th. I'm trying to think what else he might have seen. I think it was that, and he called me in. Mm-hmm. And I read for that part, and they just thought I was right. For character was Rick, and they thought I was right, and I got it right away. It was a Roger Corman produced. Mm-hmm. His wife, actually.
Julie.
It was Julie, exactly. Yeah. Produced it. And, when I read the script, and here we are, fighting robots that have gone awry and amok in a shopping mall all night. And it literally was the main shopping mall down here in San Fernando Valley that used to be called the Galleria. And it was very famous from a couple other movies, I think. But it was, an action picture where we're going to be action heroes and breaking into the stores and in the mall and causing havoc and trying to survive the night. And it just was like a fantasy, for an actor. I thought this would be great.
How
And
long?
Jim is a terrific guy, and Steve Mitchell too, the writer. So it was a pleasure to meet them and work with them on this.
Now, I'm sure when you guys were filming it, you had no idea that so many years later, this movie would have developed a cult following.
No, you really never know when you're
Hmm.
working on a project. But this has really gone crazy. I mean, even I think it was just before COVID, there was another screening in Hollywood,
Yeah.
and so many years later, and we were there. We did questions and answers, sold out. The fans were wild. They all wanted their pictures and autographs, which was great. And the questions they ask us, they're just so connected to it, and it truly has become a cult movie. And you wouldn't know when you're doing it. You're just having a blast running
Yeah.
around trying to survive the night.
Now, after the success of Friday the 13th, then of course Chopping Mall, and even in between, I believe Chopping Mall came out in '86, if I'm
I
not
believe that's right.
mistaken. Uh, did you do like a lot of conventions? There were not nearly as many conventions then as there are now, but did
Right.
you go to a lot of public appearances, like conventions?
I did very few, only for the reason that I thought that if I only appear rarely, it would be more exciting for the
Yeah.
fans and for the actor, perhaps more financially better. But and I've got one. I'll be doing one in November. Actually, they're starting up again.
Yeah.
But it's a wild experience. I mean, the amount of fans that attend those, and the other actors that you see that I wouldn't even expect show up. How are you doing this? I mean, aren't you busy working on something? I mean, real big celebrity stars that are doing it, but they're there to meet the fans and make the money too. It's really an experience that you have to have to understand the whole industry, maybe,
I
and the
know, yeah.
fans.
And this industry is a lot smaller than people think. It's like everybody
Uh,
knows, everybody in a way. In your entire career, did you come up meeting someone where you were legitimately starstruck? I know you said Cesar Romero. Is
yeah,
there anybody
that's,
else that you were like, wow, you have to
yeah,
work with them, you have to put that aside, but you were really honored to be working with them?
yeah. Glenn Ford, another icon
Ooh.
from westerns. We did a western together called Law and Rendado, also known as Border Shootout. I think it was released under Border Shootout. And we shot it in old Tucson before that Western set burned down, but I think they've
Hmm.
rebuilt it. But here's this guy, he's walking on the set and he's, oh my God, someone you've seen in films for years and, you grew up watching and he's a legend. And it was exciting to be there, just even watching him work, alone. I would just stand off to the side and watch him and listen to him. And that his voice is so recognizable, and it was a thrill with him. Um, who else? Um, well, like I said, the Rifleman. It was also great. But through my life, I've been very lucky. I started as a model in New York many years ago, so I had the opportunity to meet many, many, many well-known celebrities from all walks of life. From all fields. And so I was exposed to that, and I knew how to be around them
Yeah.
without being too nutty or gawky or whatever. Although occasionally I would ask for an autograph too, when I couldn't stop myself.
Now, film production is a very popular major in college. I'm not talking about actors. This is not about acting. Behind the scenes, script writers,
Mhm.
directors, producers. Producers do a little bit of everything. So,
Right.
camera operators, for young adults who want to break into this industry, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them to get their foot into the door?
Well, of course, it depends what they want to do in the industry. I mean, if you want to be an actor, then by all means, start taking classes. Start taking workshops where you go and they bring in casting directors and agents to look at the new talent. That's a great place to be discovered. So it's very important as an actor to hone your craft, attend classes, especially workshops.
Yeah.
If you want to be in filmmaking, then, I mean, it depends what age you are, but like I went to Syracuse University and I was in their film program. But I didn't realize when I first went to Syracuse that the head of the film department was more interested in kind of experimental film.
Yeah.
And I was like, Hollywood, I want to be the next Steven Spielberg. And they said, get out of here, go to LA. And so you know what I did? I went to LA and then, got involved in the business. But there are also places like the New York Film Academy, there are film schools all around the country that you can attend. If you want to learn all aspects of production, which I think is great, even if you want to be a cameraman, learn the other things so you're, well developed and knowledgeable about all the aspects of what goes into filmmaking.
I would think like a PA, if you're offered a job as a production assistant,
right,
just to be on the set and observe.
Totally. It's invaluable.
Yeah.
Not only will you observe and you'll be like a sponge taking in everything that's going on, but you might make some terrific contacts. Exactly. When I was still in New York, I had written Verna Fields. Verna, she won the Academy Award for editing Jaws. And she was at Universal, and I wrote her a letter comparing myself, because I was making Super 8 movies at home, and I wanted to be a film director. And I compared myself to Steven Spielberg, and I said, and I know you edited his movie, blah, 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 and I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to come to Hollywood and be a director. She writes back to me. She goes, I was so impressed with your letter. I'd love to meet you. I'm coming to your college.
Wow.
So I got her to come to college, and I was like, the head of the college, like, oh my God, you brought Verna Fields here. And she gave me a job as a tour guide at Universal for the summer. So I went back out that summer. But the key was she gave me, unlike any other tour guide, access to all the sound stages on the lower lot. And that gave me the ability to go in and observe and watch and meet people. And this is a business which is so much about relationships. Even with my clients that say, I'm having trouble, it's been a little slow. I'll say, are you reaching out to other directors of photography, assistants, unit production managers, production people? Send your resume, contact them, tell them you love their work, and send them your resume and reel. And, it only takes one. You might have to send out 500, but even if one connects you, who knows where that'll lead. Exactly. And so being a PA is a very valuable thing. Anytime you can get on a set, I think is valuable.
Absolutely. Now, growing up, you said you've done some modeling. Of course, you've done some acting. You have done a lot of different stuff in the entertainment industry. But when you were, let's say, back in high school and, you're asked that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? What were your aspirations back then? Was it acting?
It was acting and directing, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I mentioned John Cagliano, who won the Academy Award. We went to high school together, and he would make me up. He would do foam prosthetics on me then. Here we are in high school. And he would make me up like Planet of the Apes, exactly. And I'd go around the school, or I'd go around and go to a party at night if it was Halloween in that costume. And he once in the high school cafeteria, he put up not on my neck, but he put squibs, the electrical charges, over my torso. And I came into and of course there was a wire going through my leg to him who had the thing that's detonated them. And I walked into the cafeteria, and he set them off, and people saw the blood come out. I pretended that I was shot and fell down the cafeteria. I had to go home early that day, said the principal. But we played around and did that kind of stuff when we were young, and I always wanted to be in that business. And I think when I was like 10 or 11, I put a map on the floor in my kitchen, and I had two plastic cars, and I put one in California and one in New York, and I did stop motion animation, and I had them come together. And when they hit each other, the next scene I poured kerosene on them, and I lit it, and they exploded as they hit each other. And I was doing things like that, and I don't know. My mom was a singer. She was in a trio called the Darlin Sisters.
So the arts definitely is in the family.
Yeah, so I think maybe that, and they always exposed myself and my brothers to theater and movies when we were young, and I don't know, something magical about it to me. And I didn't know at really young where I would end up. My dad was in paint manufacturing and building materials, so I knew it didn't interest me. And he asked myself and my brothers if we wanted to get involved. We said no, no.
Yeah.
But somehow, I just got more and more interested in entertainment and wanted to be part of that industry.
Well, that is amazing, and the success that you've had. I mean, that's a real feel good story right there. We're almost out of time. I do want to ask you one final question. You have had the opportunity to work with several different directors. Is there any director that comes to mind for you that, uh, while working for them, because you said you had aspirations of directing yourself, somebody
Hmm.
that really struck you that, hey, I want to learn how this guy does it. I really like his style. Does any director stand out for you that you've
That I've
worked
worked
with?
with.
What?
Um, I really like working with Jim Wynorski. Jim is a great guy. He's funny and he gets actors and he gets shtick and he gets horror and he gets action. And, so I admired him for that. And we're still friends today. Um, but when I was doing all of the acting, I didn't think that at that point that I would go back in, or I never did it, but that I would go toward the director
Yeah,
role. I kind of thought that my role is as an actor, and I'm enjoying it, and this is where I'll stay. So I didn't like hey Jim, help me out here, get me in a how can I be a director?
that's awesome. Russell, thank you so much for being on
Thank
here with
you. I
us
just want to say
tonight.
one last thing that I want to
Absolutely.
thank fans not only of Friday the 13th, but all of the horror things I've done and all the other things because you've just been amazing.
Hmm.
And even to today, so many years after some of these projects, you reach out, you write, you say hello on the street if I see you. At the conventions, you're incredible. And the fans make it. And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very grateful for them and really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And it's been an honor to talk to you.
You too.
This hour just flew by. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for tuning
Thank you.
in. Stay safe. Russell, thank you so much again for being on our show. Till tomorrow night, guys, please stay safe. And on behalf of Russell and myself, always stay walking. Good night. Bye
You.
bye.